Good morning. I will call the June 1st, 2021 City Council meeting to order. And call on Councilman Pretty to lead us in our invocation and pledge when Councilman Cisco arrives. If you would please stand.
Let's pray. Father, thank you for this morning. Thank you for long weekends. Thank you for the many service members that have given their life for this country so that we can live in freedom and do things such as this to make our communities better. Father, we pray that you'll give us guidance and wisdom with the decisions before us. Help us to be good stewards of the blessings you've given our community, and help us to be servants to those that we represent on the council. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, item 3 is roll call, and Sandy, you'll see that all council members are present with the exception of Councilman Buchanan. Item 4 is approval of the minutes of the May 4th, 2021 council meeting. Those minutes were emailed out to all the council, so if there's no additions or corrections, the meetings will stand approved as read. Item 5 is proclamations, and we do have one today. This is a proclamation for the Stone Cut and the Gary Grisham is a distinguished citizen of Jackson, Madison County, Tennessee. Whereas Gary was born on 17th December 1953 in Memphis, Tennessee, to Hudson and Christine Grisham. He has one brother, Nick. Gary was raised in Kingsbury neighborhood of Memphis. He went on to star for the Kingsbury Falcons in both baseball and basketball. Graduated in 1971. He attracted the attention of Jackson State Community College and attended that school beginning in the fall of 1971 on a baseball and basketball scholarship, and graduated in 1973 with an associate's degree in mathematics. He then attended Union University in Jackson, again playing baseball and basketball, graduated in 1975 with a BS degree in mathematics. Whereas while at Union, he met the love of his life, Susan, who had to ask him out on a date. That's one way to approach it. In 1975, while Susan was pursuing her master's degree, Gary moved back to Memphis to begin his banking career with Commercial Industrial Bank as an auditor. Gary and Susan married in 1976. We assumed this time that he asked her. Whereas in 1985, he joined Union Planters Bank in Memphis. In 1990, he got the opportunity to return to Jackson. He worked with Union Planters in various positions to include senior lending officer and became president of the Jackson market in 2004. He left to join Bancorp South, where he was president of the Jackson market. He served the customers of the bank and the citizens of Jackson, Madison County. On October 9, 2012, Gary was elected chairman and CEO of the Bank of Jackson, where he has served since. Whereas Gary and Susan have been active in the Jackson community, serving the Jackson Rotary Club, Jackson Madison County Industrial Development Board, chairman of the Jackson Arts Council, the board of directors of the Boys and Girls Club, chairman of the Carl Perkins Center for Prevention of Child Abuse, chairman of the Jackson Madison County Chamber of Commerce, co-chair of the Madison County Vision 2020, Leadership Jackson, and National Cope Award recipient. The Exchange Club's Man of the Year, president of Union University National Alumni, president of Jackson State Alumni, board of directors for the Jackson Symphony Association, board of directors for Boy Scouts of America, West Tennessee Council, chairman of the Jackson Downtown Development Corporation, chairman of the Jackson Madison County Library Foundation, the board of directors of the Jackson Madison County Sports Hall of Fame, the board of directors of United Way of West Tennessee, board of directors for the University School of Jackson, the board of directors for Union University Foundation, and the board of directors for the Star Center. Whereas with the above resume, it is clear why the Stone Cup came to Gary about agreeing to sponsor the Stone Cup, the golf championship of Jackson-Madison County. Gary loves the game of golf and has been instrumental in growing same by participation and the sponsorship of the Bank of Jackson of the Stone Cup. Whereas Gary and Susan have been married for 45 years and have been blessed with a wonderful daughter, Mallory, and 3 lovely and rambunctious granddaughters, Lila, Abigail, and Lucy, who reside in Cleveland, Tennessee. They attend the North Jackson Church of Christ. Whereas in recognition of his life and dedication to the furtherance of the great game of golf, and as a part of the 2021 Stone Cup, the official golf championship of Jackson-Madison County, Tennessee, let it be known that the honoree of the 2021 Stone Cup is Gary M. Grisham. Now therefore, Lee Scott Conger, Mayor of the City of Jackson, Tennessee, and Jimmy Harris, Mayor of Madison County, Tennessee, do hereby jointly proclaim the 2021 Albert A. Stone Jr. Cup and the 2021 Pierce Cup. I urge all citizens to participate in this annual golf championship to express their appreciation for Gary Grisham for his contributions as stated here. Congratulations, Gary.
Well, what a surprise. I was coming this morning to congratulate Hank on doing a great job with the Stone Cup. The Bank of Jackson is a proud sponsor. I think, Hank, this is our 8th year, if I'm not mistaken about that. So, you know, one of the great things that the Stone Cup does is to recognize those in our community have kind of left a legacy, making our community better. What an honor it is for me to be the recipient this year. Hank, I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Mayor, thank y'all for doing this again. This is our 16th year that the citizens of Jackson and Madison County have gotten together, all races, creeds, and colors, and we've got one little white ball that we try to hit and we try to put it in the hole. And it's been an honor to help participate in this tournament. We now, ladies, have the Pierce Cup for ladies. The Talkington family sponsored the Talkington Cups for some of the juniors. And over 3 days and 3 golf courses and about 108 holes of golf, each year we try to determine the champion golfer of Jackson and Madison County. And what has been a blessing to me is to see the growth of the young men that start off at this age, and now they're playing some on the professional tour, some play in college, and so we think that it's a good thing. And we thank you all, and we thank the council. God bless y'all.
Thank you.
All right. Item 6 is invitation for public comment. Public comment to be offered on any item under first reading. And at that moment, you can raise your hand and recognize you wish to speak in favor of or opposition to. Item 7, under first reading is a consideration of an ordinance to rezone property located at the southwest quadrant of Highway 70 East, Interstate 40, and Ridgecrest Extended from AO Agriculture Open Land District to SC1 Planned Unit Commercial Development District comprising of 68.7 acres, more or less.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Good morning.
You have the materials pertinent to this rezoning request. This item was presented to the Planning Commission at their last meeting, and they have approved it, or recommended approval of it to you. This property is being rezoned to allow Tag Truck Center to build a facility, a 90,000 square foot facility, a $12 million investment. They'll be selling trucks and trailer sales and also a repair and service department. So we are happy to have them in Jackson and look forward to a grand facility.
Any questions for Stan? All right, this is an item on first reading, so I'll open the public comment. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to can be recognized. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. And is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second? Second. A second. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. So I'll give Bobby a second to bring his pile of papers up here. Item 3 is a consideration of proposed budget amendment, insurance recovery, municipal maintenance in the amount of $13,083.63.
Good morning. This involves a vehicle that was damaged, and the insurance recovered, repair that vehicle. So,
All right, any questions?
Move to approve.
Have a motion,
Second.
have a second. I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
All right, item 4 is a consideration of proposed budget amendment, insurance recovery, EDP equipment, $11,689.09.
I might pause just for a second. I know the council, you're used to seeing these insurance recovery budget amendments every month, and you may be wondering exactly why we have to do that. But all funds that are expended by the city have to be appropriated. So these were not planned for in the budget, correct? So we have to bring those back for budget approval. That's the reason we have these amendments each month. This one is actually related to lightning damage for a traffic signal.
All right, any questions? This is an item on first reading, so open the public hearing. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
All right, item 5 is consideration of proposed budget amendment, insurance recovery for the Ballpark at Jackson, the amount of $35,628.72.
This one is related to a sprinkler system malfunction out of the ballpark that caused some damage.
All right, any questions? This is an item on first reading, so I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second, any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
All right, item 6 is a consideration of a proposed budget amendment for a JPD grant in the amount of $79,538.
I understand this is a JAG grant for the police department. I believe this will be used for a new microscope for ballistics analysis, I believe.
Correct. Yeah, all right.
Move to approve. Second.
Have a motion and a second. We'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of, opposition to? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
All right, item 7 is consideration of proposed budget amendment for a JPD grant in the amount of $36,448.
It's a PSN grant that will be used for an anti-gun media campaign.
So moved.
Have a
Second.
motion and a second. Open the public hearing. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
All right. Item 8 is a consideration of a proposed budget amendment for urban transportation planning grant in the amount of $17,494.
We were fortunate as a city to be selected for an urban transportation planning grant. It's a 10% match, 90% grant, 10% match. This represents the local match.
All right, any questions?
Quick question, how long does this grant, run?
This urban transportation planning grant is provided by the Tennessee Department of Transportation. It will allow us to update our bike, ped, and greenways plan. And I received an email today saying we have a notice to proceed, so they'll start very soon, and it runs for about a year.
Okay, thank you.
So this will be under new business.
Yeah,
This is connected to that?
Yeah, the
Okay.
actual contract, that'll be under new business. This is just the budget amendment for our portion of the match. All right, any questions, any further questions? This is a first reading, so open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
And a second, any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
Item 9 is consideration of proposed budget amendment, capital outlay fund in the amount of $1,061,431.
This budget amendment arises from a road project, a road repaving project, which was initiated back in the early spring of 2020. It was a large project, if I remember, somewhere around $2 million paving project. We had anticipated and budgeted for that project to be complete and paid for by June 30th of 20. For various reasons, it was not completed by June 30th of 20. So what the result of that means that our ending fund balance at June 30th of 20 was about $2 million higher than we had projected for it to be in the FY21 budget. So what we need to do now is to amend our budget this year to move some of that higher than expected fund balance down to the expense section of the capital outlay fund for this particular project. And also, there were one or two other small capital projects over the course of the year that exceeded their budget appropriations by small amounts. We'll rectify that with this budget amendment as well. We've monitored this over the course of the year. We elected to hold this budget amendment until the last meeting of the year. That's allowed us to go back and use some budgeted funds for other line items in the capital budget this year that was not used to offset the amount that we're having to transfer from fund balance.
So this amendment encompasses more than just street resurfacing, correct?
It does. There were a couple of other small line items in the budget, the capital budget, that exceeded the approved amount for this year. And in the other way, Councilman Brooks, that it affects other line items is there, as I stated, there were some funds that were budgeted in this year. A good example would be the city court building. After that project was closed, there were some remaining budgeted funds. So we were able to move those to the paving, street paving line item to avoid having to move more of our fund balance.
Any other questions?
So this results in a budgeted fund balance for this year, a budgeted street resurfacing for this year of $3.3 million is the resultant. Am I tracking there?
When you say this year, the new budget?
Amended FY21 budget after post-approval
That
of
would be
this?
true, yeah.
Okay. What is, as I kind of go down through here, I see it makes sense, like we underspent in some of these categories. What is this that the mayor's office was unbudgeted?
Understand that was related to the website
Okay.
development, so.
And then will these, because, we're about to enter a new fiscal year. So the $3.3 million street resurfacing that we have, that will roll over?
Portion of that will roll over to next year, and we'll address that in the
Okay.
budget ordinance here in a second.
Any additional questions? This is an item on first reading, so I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
Item 10 is consideration of proposed budget amendment for proposed employee bonuses in the amount of $410,992.88.
The mayor's office has put forth a proposal to recognize the efforts of our employees over the course of this year, which has been a very difficult year, many challenges, and they've responded in a very positive way. This amount of $410,000, almost $411,000 would fund, I believe I have this right, Mayor, check me on this, a $500 bonus for full-time employees with a year's service or more, $250 for full-time employees between 6 months and 1 year service, and then $100 for employees less than 6 months. And this would also include the related FICA and TCR match, so this would be the total cost.
This is a one-time bonus.
Yes.
Move the approval.
Second.
I have a motion second. This is an item on first reading, so anyone wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
All right, item 11, consideration of proposed budget ordinance for FY '22.
Okay. This budget ordinance that you're going to consider today, and then again on a second reading, would approve the FY '22 proposed budget. That would include the revenues that we anticipate, as well as the appropriations of how to spend that money. Just a little background information for you quickly. We started working on the FY '22 proposed budget back in January, consulting with our department heads and soliciting input from the department heads. You may recall the city council participated in a planning goal-setting session together that was facilitated by MTAS early in the process. Subsequent to that, we had two different budget hearings where various departments were here to present their budgets and answer questions that the council members may have had. And this budget proposal has been reviewed and through the budget committee as well. So that's kind of the background that gets us to today. The budget ordinance itself is prepared in a compliant way with the appropriate TCA statutes and the municipal budget law of 1982. We're using a template that is recommended by the Comptroller's office. We'll move to page 2. Beginning on page 2 of the ordinance, there's a financial summary for each of the funds. My plan is to kind of reserve my comments to the major funds, those being the general fund, capital outlay, debt service, and solid waste fund. The format for these summary financial reports are the same for each fund. There's a column for actual results from FY '20, a column in the middle for our estimated results for FY '22, for FY '21, and then the proposed budget for FY '22. It would probably be helpful for the council members, and I think for the public as well, to just pause and understand the context of these numbers that you're going to be looking at. So FY '20, FY '21, and FY '22, all of those years have been impacted by the COVID pandemic. The last quarter of FY '20 was when we began to see the impact of COVID. Certainly, the fiscal year that we're in now, FY '21, has been impacted in a substantial way. Primarily through public health initiatives and concerns, plus initiatives by the city to ensure that in an uncertain year regarding our financial performance, that we took action to be good stewards and do the best that we could in terms of uncertain years. And then finally, FY '22, we hope, and this budget is prepared for that to be, for the most part, post-COVID. The reopening of the city and restoring city services. So as a result of that, you will see, I guess, some fluctuations and changes in the numbers from year to year that you would not normally see in, I think, in more normal times. So we'll begin with the general fund at the top of page 2. Most of my comments are going to be focused on FY '21, the year we're in now, and FY '22 as well. Starting with FY '21, if you compare that to FY '20, what you see is, I guess, somewhat of an unusual circumstance in that revenues for FY '21 were 3.6% above revenues for FY '20. That looks to be about $3 million or so. I started to say, to kind of frame that by saying, it was unexpected. But I got to thinking about that, and I'm not sure that would be the proper way to do it. That would kind of have the connotation that we knew what to expect, right, going into this year, and I'm not sure that would be true either. So, but this was the results, and most of, we have lots of revenue accounts. Many of them were up and down. Just kind of 3 comments about this year's revenue compared to the prior year. Sales tax collections, local sales tax and state sales tax were the big driver in this positive revenue variance. As well as during the year, we did receive some grant funding from the CARES Act, as well as some FEMA reimbursement as well, that kind of contributed to this revenue in FY '21 being higher than FY '20. At the same time, when revenues were up about 3.6% in FY '21 compared to '20, expenses were actually down 4.5%. When you have that type of combination, revenues up, expenses down, we had a $2.7 million surplus in FY '20. FY '21 at this point is estimated to end up somewhere around $8.5 million. I would caution everyone, that number was projected based on April results, and sometimes the last quarter of the year, particularly the last 2 months of the year, is difficult to forecast expenses as accurately as you might think, and then we have year-end accruals, but nonetheless, the numbers certainly indicate that we're going to end this year with a very successful year financially, somewhere in that neighborhood. So let me pause there before we move to FY '22. Oh, I might just share with you generally. You may be wondering, well, where and how were expenses down so much in FY '21? We talked a little bit about the revenue. I think you have to remember that there's just an overall impact on our operations from COVID that kind of permeates every department in the city, one way or another. It's difficult to go back and quantify every single impact, but that certainly contributed to our expenses being down. But some other reasons that expenses were down this fiscal year is the city made a conscious effort. You will recall back the last quarter of FY '20, we made the hard decision to eliminate some positions permanently. We had an employee furlough program that contributed to that, and related benefits associated with that. You may, if you can think back to FY '20, not '21, FY '20, we instituted an early retirement program during that year. That involved when employees elected to take advantage of that program, there was some accrued leave, what we refer to as terminal leave, that's paid to those employees. So that drove up that expense item in FY '20. Well, we didn't repeat that in FY '21. With fewer employees, on the job, our on-the-job injuries were down, in FY '21. We made some substantial changes that resulted in savings from the Lift Clinic contract. You may also recall back in FY '20, it was necessary for the general fund to make some transfers to some other funds to correct some audit findings from the past. Well, we didn't have to repeat those transfers in FY '21. Grants and donations were another contributing factor. With COVID, the work on the ADA projects were slowed down. Public facilities, parks and recreation and public facilities were all shut down for most of the year. And we were able, through some CARES Act funding that JTA received, we were able to minimize some of the operation support for the Transit Authority. So there's a whole myriad of reasons over this past year why expenses were down 4.5%. Okay, regarding FY '22, for the general fund. If you'll refer to your schedule there, I would categorize revenue projections for FY '22, kind of the broad statement as being flat. You'll notice that they're actually, revenues in FY '21 are 77.1 million. Revenues in FY '22 are 75.9 million. So there's actually about a 1.5% decrease, but that's primarily due to the CARES Act funding, the FEMA funding, and some other grants that we received in FY '21 they're not gonna repeat in FY '22. So for the most part, I think the way to think about our revenue for next year, our primary revenue sources, sales tax, property tax, state shared taxes, they're kind of budgeted flat next year for where they have been this year. We do have some increase in some local revenues that are generated from public facilities reopening, building department fees, those types of things, but they're not as material. So we have revenue budgeted next year of $75.9 million. That's a 1.5% decrease from this year. Expenses next year are budgeted at $75.9 million. That's about an 11% increase from where we have been this year. Some of the areas, just kind of in summary fashion, summary comments that would help you understand that number a little bit better. A lot of that is related to employee compensation. So our departments are restaffing and reopening public facilities where the city is reopening again. So there's employee compensation there. There are some positions that have been vacant this past year that are in the budget to be filled, and there are some new positions in next year's budget as well. They're related to that. Each year, some of our employees each year progress in their salary scale from year to year. That's a contributing factor. There's been some targeted compensation adjustments in certain areas. TCRS funding percentage went up slightly. There's the matching FICA on this. Health plan's up about $600,000. When you aggregate all of those employee type expenses, it's somewhere around $3.3 million. Also, an investment next year that's in the budget that's much needed and we're all very excited about is technology, right? So between the core financial applications and investment in those, as well as a couple of other departments that have invested and upgraded some of their technology over the course of the year, there's about $900,000 increase in expenses next year for technology investment as well. And there's some other less material items, but those are the primary contributing factors to the expenses. So with that, revenue next year of $75.9 million, expenses of $75.9 million. We are budgeted in the general fund with just a small surplus of $12,000, but basically a break-even situation for the general fund next year.
All right, thank you, Bobby. So we have several options here. We've done the budget work sessions. We've had department heads here, and if there's been any adjustments, there are any department-specific questions, you can ask those, and you can also ask some general budget questions to Bobby as well. Any questions? All right.
Mayor, I do think
I'd like to go over some of the other funds.
it will be much briefer
Okay.
than that, but I do think it would be best if we
Yeah.
took a look at some of the other main funds. So the solid waste fund is at the top of page 3. The solid waste fund is budgeted next year for a surplus. We're projecting a surplus at the end of this year. There was a surplus at the end of FY '20 as well. The solid waste fund is budgeted this next year to service some debt that is related to previous capital outlay notes that were specific for equipment for the solid waste fund, as well as their capital needs for next year specific to the solid waste fund. They will be funded through the solid waste fund as well. Might move on to page 4, down at the bottom of page 4. This would be the debt service fund. Just a couple of important comments here. Besides our existing debt that we had prior to this past year, we will be picking up in the debt service fund next year the debt service requirements on the Jackson Fire Department lease purchase agreement, the Jackson Police Department capital outlay note, as well as we do anticipate at some point during the year picking up the capital lease payments on Madison High School, that debt. You may remember both the fire department and the police department made adjustments in their operating budgets for this next year that helped fund the debt service on their specific capital. The way that, they make the adjustments in their operating budgets and expense. The way that actually happens, though, is you have to change the allocation of our property tax dollars, right, to get that over in the debt service fund. So you'll see the ordinance related to the property tax here in just a second, but I'll go ahead and tell you there's about 5 cents, which totals about $935,000 or so, that this year has been in the general fund that will be allocated or directed to the debt service fund next year for that debt coverage. Okay. Page 5, the capital outlay fund at the top of the page. The capital fund can get a little bit confusing because we're primarily dealing with 2 types of capital items. We're dealing with what historically here at the city has been referred to as carryover capital items. These are items that were actually approved in the FY21 budget or by budget amendments over the course of the FY21 year that are not completed and paid for until the following year, right? And then we're dealing with new items that you will be approving in the capital budget for FY22. So what we've done is, the way this is prepared now, we have restricted the new items that you'll be approving in the FY22 capital budget to those items that we have a funding source for at this point. This might be a little bit clearer if you don't mind jumping ahead to page 7 of the ordinance at the top. This would be section 4. And I mentioned earlier we do elect to use the Comptroller's recommended budget ordinance template, and this is the way they like to see this presented. That first box there under section 4 is pending capital projects. So these would be the projects that we historically have classified as carryover projects. So they're listed there for you. The bottom half of this box is what the Comptroller's office refers to as proposed future capital projects. So these are projects that you would be approving in the FY22 budget, and they are listed for you there as well. Specific to street refunding, up in the top there is the third line in that top box. There's $1,244,658. That's the balance that's left from the $1.5 million state grant that we received this year for street repaving. And then down in the bottom box, under the new approvals for next year, street repaving is in at $657,500. So that would be a total of $1,902,158 for street repaving in this particular proposal. And just one other point, not to avoid a question later on or some confusion. I want to refer you to the bottom box, the proposed future capital projects. The Jackson Fire Department lease purchase. There's some accounting requirements related to the lease purchase. And basically, the way that works is when we receive the equipment, we recognize the lease proceeds as income, and we recognize the expense related to the equipment. Well, there was $5 million worth of equipment. We have received most of it currently, but there's $1,461,615 that we anticipate receiving hopefully in July. So that's the reason that appears that way. Just very quickly, I'm trying to move forward quickly here. If I could just refer you back to page 6. Page 6, section 3. I mentioned in my comments about the debt service fund what the new debt service requirements are this year. This schedule is just required by the comptroller to lay out all of our existing debt. And of course, most of our debt is funded through the debt service fund. There are a couple of loans that are funded through the community redevelopment fund, and I mentioned in my comments about solid waste that their portion of this debt service is actually funded in the solid waste fund. Okay, moving to section 6 on page 7. This is just like we've had it this past year. This section in the ordinance authorizes the mayor to approve budget amendments at $10,000 or less. And then we just bring those and report to y'all, which ones they are at the following meeting. And if you'd flip to page 8, section 8, there is no tax increase, property tax increase proposed in this budget. The tax rate is recommended to remain at $1.9619. I did mention to you the change in the allocation from between the general fund and the debt service. And that allocation this next year will be 1.3846 in the general fund, 0.5773 to debt service fund, for a total of 1.9619. Section 9 just deals with, we have 15 days after the council approves this to submit this budget to the comptroller for their approval. And section 10 just notes that the balance of any appropriations remaining at the end of the fiscal year that are not encumbered, they lapse at the end of the year.
Mhm.
Any questions from council?
Mayor, I have a question relative to the process. So, we will not hear from each individual department relative to their budgets or
We've already
their
done that.
capital
We
expenses?
had 2 budget work sessions that had the department heads come up.
Okay, and
and that
they presented that to the budget
Yes.
committee?
And the capital, we're not having right now because it's we call it bare bones, because we're anticipating how we can utilize American Rescue Plan for next year. So we'll bring that as we get that information and as we get those numbers from American Rescue Plan on how we can utilize those funds. We'll bring the capital back after that. So this is the capital that we're using now, and then we'll bring an amended capital budget when we're prepared to do so.
Thank you.
I'd just like to express some appreciation for Mr. Arnold for your work and everyone else here that's worked on this budget. I know that, having the work sessions, I think, helped kind of consolidate this process here at the end of the year. So, Mr. Arnold, I'd like to thank you for your work and everybody else for putting in the time throughout the year. Instead of us having a 2-month process, I think the 6-month process has helped it significantly.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I appreciate the work of the Budget Committee, very helpful in the process, the council. I would like to recognize there are 2 employees in my department that contribute greatly. Kathy Keck and Zach Polk, and I'd like to recognize them. And the department heads are very supportive of the process as well.
I think the department heads owe a lot of credit to them for the surplus we're looking at the end of this year, the work that they've done throughout the year to make sure that we're keeping our expenses in line and treating these budgets like their own. So they deserve all the credit for the work done this year as well. All right, any additional questions?
I would like not to leave out Mr. Paul Taylor. Thank you for your leadership with the committee. I mean, we might get mad at you sometime, but
It's all right. Yeah, I'm used to it, man.
but you keep it on straight and narrow.
It's the
But
world I live in.
yeah, thank you for your leadership and through this
Thank you.
process also.
Appreciate it.
All right, this is an item on first reading, so I will open up the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to be recognized. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing, and do I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion? From-
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
Thank you, Bobby. All right, item 12 is consideration of an ordinance to amend building codes to 2018 international codes. Mr. Greg Rowland.
Good morning, Mayor, Council, how y'all doing?
Good morning.
I think y'all received the information for the code adoption in a packet. We're required by the state to keep our exemption to adopt new building codes every 5 or 6 years. So this is just part of the process. We have been audited this year, state electrical audit and state building audit, and proud to say we passed both audits flying colors. So I'll take any questions y'all might have.
So could you speak, for those that weren't able to attend on Thursday, about what we're talking about, what changes are happening and which that the Codes Advisory Board opted not to present to us today?
Sure. This code adoption was presented to the Code Advisory Appeals Board. They did move to approve it with one change. The new energy code has a stricter requirement on wall insulation. It's a thicker insulation, and this would move for the builders to build a 2x6 wall. I'll try to keep this brief. A 2x6 wall, therefore running the price of new construction up and making it less affordable. So we felt like, and the board felt like, that keeping the energy code to the version we have now would meet all the needs that the construction would need.
And this also includes Appendix Q or Section Q? Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
we have chosen to adopt Appendix Q dealing with tiny homes.
Okay.
Dealing with what kind of homes?
Tiny homes.
The current building code has some restrictions on being able to build small footprint homes, and a lot of communities are adopting this appendix that would allow us to be able to do that as well.
Yeah, Appendix Q will tell you how to build a tiny home, but it would still have to be approved to where they can be located by the planning department.
All right, any additional questions? All right, this is an item on first reading, so open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to? Seeing none, close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second, any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
All right, item 13 is consideration of a budget, not a budget, I've been saying that too much. Consideration of an ordinance to amend Fire Codes 2018 International Codes.
This goes hand in hand with our building codes. It's basically the same thing.
Any other additions or subtractions from what would typically be found?
No.
Okay. So moved.
Have a motion?
Second.
Second, this is an item on first reading. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor, Council.
Thank you.
Move on to second reading, consideration of proposed budget amendment for EMA tornado warning siren in the amount of $13,469.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
All right. We're on to new business. Item 1 is consideration for approval for license to use the baseball stadium. I got an amended. I thought that went out to everybody. Apologize, Bob. We call on Lewis Cobb to update us on this.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Do y'all have a copy of the
Somewhere.
license agreement in front of you? We are in the process of transitioning from the license and use agreement we had with the baseball team that owned and operated by Mr. Freeman into bidding out a request for proposals for suggestions on how to best use the stadium that's in Jackson's best interest. In the time between now and when that RFP comes in, is evaluated, and we make decisions, we want to keep the stadium being used, and we are requiring anyone that wants to use the stadium to enter into a license for a specific time, specific event. One of those licenses that we're presenting for you now is with the baseball team. The Gold Eyes are based in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and they have issues getting across the international border. With COVID, it requires a 14-day isolation going in and going out. And so for a baseball team that's playing 100 games, half in home and half away, that creates chaos. So they had entered into a discussion with David Freeman to use our stadium. And Mr. Freeman committed that they could use our stadium even though his right to use our stadium had ended. We've told him that, we've informed him of that, we've sent several letters which I've discussed with you, and we eventually declared the lease terminated, the license terminated, and it ended May 30th. We're glad to have baseball teams here, but we want to have them here with an orderly process, and that is a license. And so the city of Jackson got some help. Actually, I got a lot of help from law firm Steve Riley of Riley Warnock, and using their experience with this and their experience with the arbitration procedure we're in, we drafted this agreement. We presented it to Sam Cates, who is the owner-operator of the Gold Eyes team, and he signed it, which is an offer to the city to approve it. The offer is that they will come to Jackson. They can have whoever they want to do the management of the day-to-day operations. They said they couldn't relocate their people to Jackson. So we've made several offers to them of how to accomplish that. A decision has not been made on that yet. We're in discussions. But this is for permission to use the stadium. The financial arrangement, which I think is everyone's, or not, maybe not the most important, but it's pretty darn important, is the city is going to do in paragraph 3, the licensee's obligation. In exchange for the benefits of the agreement, the licensee, the Gold Eyes, will pay $1. That's all we're asking. It's an interim deal, and we thought that was fair. But the licensee will be responsible for all the expenses incurred with the connection of hosting the team. They'll pay the players, they'll pay the coaches, they'll pay travel, food, lodging, all those things that go with management and operating the team. What the city has agreed to pay is the utilities and the routine maintenance. And the language in the routine maintenance is taken directly from the existing lease that was done back in '98, which is the stadium, the repairs to the stadium, the components. Man, all of y'all can read. I'm not going to read to you, but it is the exact same language that we had in the original lease before we entered into expanding that agreement to provide fairly massive subsidies after we had the economic crisis in '08 and whatever. Anyway, so what we're doing is we're maintaining what is ours, which is the stadium, and the operation of the team itself is their expense. Now, this doesn't mean that they will ask us to do anything else, or we may enter into agreements to do other things. Those are all in negotiation, but this is a license for the stadium itself. I've tried to anticipate some of your questions, but if you have any others, I'll try to answer them.
Yeah, I think the important thing, Louis, this is a non-exclusive license agreement, so this gives us an opportunity to license it out on dates of non-home games for the stadium.
Right. The city is now in charge of its stadium again, where the license, each person that wants to come and use the stadium will talk to the city and enter into an agreement. We hope to, have a lot of people come. We think there's interest in it. We think we have a really attractive stadium. We've been told you have a really nice stadium by the people that have responded to the request for proposals. And I think anybody that drives out there can see that that's true.
Who's responsible for the field, the groundskeeper? Does that fall under our routine maintenance?
The field, I don't have my glasses with me. I think the routine maintenance, all components of the stadium in good functioning condition, including painting, refinishing.
I should know if that included the playing surface, like the grounds crew.
Ultimately, it is our responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to keep the field in shape. I would say that keeping the field in shape would be something we would do, even if nobody's using the stadium.
Right.
Will we be hiring a crew or just using our regular,
City employee.
that's for the field?
We'll do one or the other. We don't know if we're gonna be in charge of doing it.
It's all contingent on the management agreement that the Gold Eyes will have for their stadium operations. We're awaiting that.
This is the first shoe. The other shoe is how they're gonna go about managing their operation. But yeah, it does say that landscaping and preventative corrective maintenance is required under our duties.
Will that management agreement come back before us?
And the management agreement will be between the Gold Eyes and their management firm. They're licensing the stadium from us. And so how they choose to manage it will be between them and the management.
But relative to whether or not, as we just discussed, will, city employees do this routine maintenance? That was Councilman Pretty's question. Or would we?
So our expenses will be fixed regardless. Our city employees are doing the external groundskeeping service now. If the management agreement between the Gold Eyes and whoever they decide to manage the stadium, if it's them hiring and us reimbursing for that use, then we'll do that. But the cost will be fixed. Any additional questions? All right. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
A motion is second. Any further discussion?
I'd like to state that I will abstain from voting due to the proximity of some property that we have near the stadium.
I understand.
Noted. Thank you, sir. All right. Council, please vote.
Motion passed 7-1 abstain.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, item 2 is consideration of a resolution for urban transportation planning grant.
This resolution is related to the budget amendment that you approved earlier. And basically, I understand that the state, since they're going to fund 90% of this grant, they would like for you to endorse the results of that grant that they're funding, so.
So moved.
Have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
Item 3 is in consideration of the adoption of the City of Jackson Pension Plan Funding Policy.
So very quickly, I think the council members are all aware of what we internally refer to as the old pension plan. Formerly, it's the City of Jackson Pension Plan. It involves former public safety employees. We received a letter from the State Department of Treasury requesting that we adopt a formal funding plan. So we used, again, their template and modified it for us and drafted this particular plan. in essence, commits the city to two things. One, biannually, we will have an actuarial report prepared on this particular plan, and the city would agree to fund 100% of the actuarially determined contribution that results from that report, so. It's kind of a housekeeping thing.
Any questions from council?
Move to approve.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
All right, item 4 is a consideration of a contract CMA 2272 between State of Tennessee Department of Transportation and the City of Jackson. And Percy, come on up here. Are there any questions? All right, council has a copy of the contract. Any questions for Percy with the street department?
Is there any pricing associated within this contract?
It's a change in the contract. We'll be picking up I-40 starting July the 1st. That's an additional added money to our contract of $23,760. We'll be mowing it 6 times a year.
And they typically mow it how much?
6 times.
What, we mow it 6 times, but the state would mow it
Now,
what?
they don't.
They don't?
When they were mowing 3 times, 4 times a year.
Okay,
Well, the residents were really complaining a lot about high grass, so the city picked up the contract, negotiated the contract with the state, and the state let us cut it 6, rather than, because so many complaints were coming in, so it's a whole lot better if we cut it 6 times rather than they cut it 3 or 4 times.
okay.
All right, is there a motion?
Move to approve?
Have a second?
No.
Have a second by Councilman McKelvey. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 7-0.
All right, item 5 is consideration of a contract CMA 2273 between State of Tennessee Department of Transportation and the City of Jackson.
So moved.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second?
Second, any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank y'all, y'all have a good day.
Thank you.
Item 6 is consideration of proposed sale of property, map 078A, Group D, parcel 003, 126 Roland Avenue, the offer of $2,000.
So moved.
Motion, is there a second?
Second?
Second, any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
All right, item 7 is consideration of board appointments. JEA Board, consideration of reappointment of Dr. Logan Hampton.
So moved.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second?
Second. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
West Tennessee Healthcare Board, consideration of reappointment of Phil Bryant.
So moved.
Have a motion?
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
Okay. Keep Jackson Beautiful Board, consideration of appointment of Rachel Geyer to replace Keith Davis, Jenny Deming to replace Richard Donnell, and I apologize in advance, Avanciva Masijian to replace Ann Vanderlyn.
So moved.
Have a motion
Second?
and a second. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
Item 8 is a consideration of budget amendments less than $10,000. Those are just, have to be voted on? Voted, yeah, okay. We're just sunshine.
I don't think we have to vote on
Yeah,
it.
just sunshine, right?
That's
Yeah.
right.
It's been a while since we had those. Item 9 is consideration of invoices over $10,000.
So moved.
Have a motion?
Second.
Second, any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
All right, nothing else on the agenda? Meeting's adjourned.
Hey, there needs to be something else
Marathon.
Well,